Why do the oldest beings in the galaxy lower their voices when someone says the word Earth? And why does every map in the Elder Compact show one small blue planet as a place no one should ever visit? Before we go deeper into this mystery, take one small second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves powerful sci-fi stories. It helps this story travel farther than any starship ever could. My name is Veer, and I was not born to be brave. I was not a warrior. I was not a captain. I was not an explorer with a hunger for danger. I worked in the quiet halls of the Elder Compact, inside the map archive, where old stars were named, dead moons were marked, and lost worlds were recorded so future ships would not vanish in the dark. My work was simple. I checked coordinates. I fixed old records. I updated star charts that had not been touched in hundreds of years. Most days, I heard nothing but the soft hum of machines and the slow turning of ancient data walls. I liked it that way. The galaxy is not kind to the curious. There are places between stars where ships never return. There are species that smile while planning wars that last for centuries. There are ruins older than memory, floating in silence, full of warnings no one can read anymore. So I had always believed that safe work was good work. Then one night, a red light filled my room. Not blue. Blue meant a normal message. Not green. Green meant a completed task. Red meant a sealed file had opened. I woke before my second heart finished its first beat. A small service sphere floated near my bed. Its name was Dell, and it had assisted me for years. Machines do not get afraid, or at least that is what I believed before that night. But Dell hovered too close, and its voice had a thin, shaking sound. Cartographer Veer, it said. The Sol System file has been accessed under your authority. I sat up. That is not possible. The file opened 3 minutes ago. I was asleep. I know. Those 2 words made the room colder. I crossed to the console and placed my hand on the reader. The screen recognized me at once. Then it showed my authorization mark beside a file name I had never seen before. Sol System. Third planet. Designation, Earth. Below it were 3 lines. Do not engage. Do not study. Do not remember. I stared at those words for a long time. Every world in the Compact archive had warnings when warnings were needed. Some planets carried warnings for radiation. Some for war. Some for unstable gravity. Some for creatures that could hear thought through stone. But those warnings explained the danger. This one did not. This one sounded like a command given by someone who wanted the whole galaxy to look away. I should have closed the file. I should have reported the accident. I should have gone back to sleep and let someone older, wiser, and more powerful deal with it. But I made the mistake that changes every quiet life. I kept reading. There was almost nothing inside. That was the first strange thing. Even forgotten ice moons had more detail than this. A normal system file had millions of data points. Star age. Planet count. Atmosphere. Culture level. Radio history. Military risk. Resource value. Diplomatic notes. The Sol file had almost nothing. 1 ordinary yellow star. 1 habitable third planet. 1 moon. No active contact record. No approved study. No travel permit. And at the bottom, 1 old sentence written in council language. Exclusion status permanent. Authorization to lift, none granted. None will be granted. Dell drifted beside me. You should close it. Why is an empty file guarded more heavily than the war archive? Dell did not answer at once. That was strange too. Machines answer quickly. They calculate. They do not pause because of fear. Finally it said, some files are not sealed to protect knowledge. They are sealed to protect the ones who might learn it. That should have been enough. It was not. I began with a public search. I entered the word Earth into the archive network. Nothing came back. Not restricted results. Not classified results. Nothing. It was as if no scholar, no historian, no scout, no traveler, no poet, and no old machine had ever written the word Earth in the entire history of the compact. That was impossible. The Elder Compact had mapped half the galaxy. We had records of dust storms on planets where no one had lived for 10,000 years. We had songs from dead species translated into 14 languages. We had eating customs of insects from moons that no longer existed. But Earth had been erased. A living world, hidden inside a blank space. That was when I thought of Orgeth. Orgeth was one of the elders. Not simply old. Ancient. The kind of old that made young species lower their eyes. They had lived through wars that were now taught as mythology. They had watched governments rise, break, and become museum displays. I had delivered map reports to Orgeth before. Small things. Formal things. I hoped that thin connection might be enough. So I went to their chamber. The door did not open right away. I stood in the dim corridor, feeling very small, while unseen systems studied me. At last, the door slid aside. Orgeth sat by a wide window. Beyond it, stars turned slowly in the dark. They looked calm, but not peaceful. There is a difference. You are far from the map wing, Orgeth said. I found a file. Their long fingers rested on the chair. Which file? I swallowed. Sol system. Earth. Orgeth's fingers closed. It was a tiny movement. Almost nothing. But from a being that controlled every breath, every blink, every word, it was like watching a mountain flinch. You should not know that name, Orgeth said. I only want to understand why the file says not to remember. The warning is the answer. That is not an answer. Orgeth looked at me for a long time. I expected anger. Instead, I saw something worse. Pity. Do you know how old I am, Veer? No. I have seen empires born from dust. I have seen weapons that could unmake a star. I have spoken peace into rooms full of species that wanted to erase each other. Across all that time, there is only one world that has ever made me afraid. Earth, I said. Orgeth turned back toward the stars. We do not fear their weapons, they said softly. Their weapons are crude. Loud. Limited. Measured against the galaxy, they are almost nothing. Then what do you fear? Orgeth did not look at me. We fear what humans become when weapons are not enough. I did not understand. They knew I did not understand. Go back to your maps, Orgeth said. Forget the file if you can. Some knowledge does not sit quietly inside the mind. It grows teeth. I left their chamber with more questions than answers. That night I could not sleep. The next day, I searched for old records. Not the main Sol file. That was sealed too tightly. Instead, I searched broken references, ancient scout logs, forgotten backups, files so old no one had remembered to hide them properly. And there, buried under layers of dust and outdated code, I found the first contact record. It was not official contact. It was observation. The scout ship was called Wanderer's Reach. Its captain was Edmund Cole. Thousands of years ago, his vessel entered the Sol system on what should have been a normal survey mission. His first entry was calm. Approaching designated system. Third planet inhabited. Low technology level. Radio signals present. Early industrial development. No immediate threat. The next entries were normal too. The crew mapped weather. They listened to broadcasts. They watched cities glow at night. They studied oceans, clouds, storms, and roads. It sounded like any normal survey of a young species. Then the tone changed. Day 4. Radio signals show more complexity than expected. Multiple languages. Multiple nations. Frequent conflict. Also frequent cooperation across great distances. Pattern unusual. Day 7. Crew member Laura Bennett reports that surface history contains many events where smaller groups resisted stronger forces far beyond predicted surrender limits. I leaned closer. The words were simple, but the meaning inside them was not. Every species has a breaking point. That was one of the first laws of galactic behavior. When loss becomes too great, effort falls. When danger becomes certain, resistance weakens. That is not cowardice. It is survival. But Captain Cole had found a species that did not follow the curve. Day 12. Historical review confirms repeated examples of human groups facing impossible odds. In many cases, resistance continued beyond all logical expectation. In some cases, the weaker side prevailed. Day 15. I have ordered increased distance from the planet. There has been no hostile action against us. The humans do not know we are here. Still, the pattern troubles me. A species that becomes more dangerous as its situation becomes more hopeless cannot be modeled safely. I read that line again. A species that becomes more dangerous as its situation becomes more hopeless. That was the first real answer. The galaxy did not fear human strength. It feared the strange direction of human courage. Captain Cole approved one test. A small hidden probe. It would enter the upper atmosphere, invisible to human technology, and return deeper readings. The entry after that was only 4 words. The probe was detected. I sat frozen. That should not have happened. The probe came from a civilization that crossed stars while humans were still struggling to reach their own moon. It was built to hide from sensors 1,000 times more advanced than anything Earth had. But humans noticed. Not perfectly. Not fully. But enough. Day 23. Surface governments have begun tracking the unknown object. Several of these governments are in conflict with each other, yet cooperation began faster than expected. Rival groups are sharing information in response to an external unknown. Captain Cole withdrew to the edge of the system. His final entry was the one that made my hands cold. This species appears to calculate differently. When odds worsen, effort increases. When fear grows, coordination improves. When survival becomes unlikely, resolve sharpens. I recommend extreme caution in all future encounters, regardless of their current technology level. The log ended. I sat in the dark archive, listening to the old air systems move around me. Now I understood a little of what Orgeth meant. Humans were not frightening because they were strong. They were frightening because pressure did not always crush them. Sometimes, it forged them. You are still here, and that means you have already crossed the first gate of this story. Before the next secret opens, press like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who would stand their ground even when the whole universe told them to kneel. I thought Captain Cole's report might be an exception. 1 scout. 1 crew. 1 small piece of a very large world. So I searched deeper. I found observer reports from centuries after Cole. Silent listening posts. Hidden monitoring craft. Study teams that never landed, never spoke, never stayed longer than necessary. The names changed. The conclusion did not. Grace Whitfield watched human wars through intercepted broadcasts. She wrote about one conflict where a surrounded force, low on food and ammunition, should have surrendered within days according to every model. Instead, they held on far longer than predicted and changed the larger war around them. Peter Hale studied human disasters. Floods. Fires. Earthquakes. Storms. The model predicted that survivors under pressure would become selfish. It predicted violence over resources. It predicted social collapse. He found the opposite. People from safe regions sent food. Strangers traveled toward danger instead of away from it. Volunteers appeared before governments could even organize them. Hale wrote, in disaster conditions, cooperation increased. I have searched for translation errors. I found none. Nora Bishop studied a long human standoff where rival nations held weapons powerful enough to destroy their own world. Every model predicted that one side would either surrender or attack. Humans did neither. They stood at the edge of extinction for years, afraid, angry, proud, stubborn, and somehow still alive. Bishop's last note was marked with concern. Human decision-makers appear willing to accept personal cost rather than be the first to step back. That sentence disturbed me more than I expected. In the compact, peace was built on the idea that all beings eventually choose survival. Even proud species bend when the price becomes too high. Even violent empires pause when the edge is close enough. But humans could stand at the edge and stare back. I found more reports. A city buried by bombs but still broadcasting music. A group trapped under ice that kept sending signals long after oxygen should have ended. A ship at sea, broken by storm, whose crew tied themselves together so no one would be taken alone. A village that rebuilt after every disaster as if the universe itself had challenged them and they were too offended to stay fallen. A scientist working through sickness to finish work that might save strangers he would never meet. A parent lifting impossible weight because a child was trapped beneath it. A soldier carrying another through fire after every tactical option had failed. One report after another. Different ages. Different cultures. Different languages. Different reasons. The same pattern. Humans did not ignore fear. They felt it deeply. They shook. They cried. They doubted. They broke. But breaking did not always stop them. Sometimes a broken human became more dangerous than a whole one. That was when I found the Voss report. Edward Voss had gone closer to Earth than any observer after Cole. His vessel remained hidden, but it watched with higher detail. His report was long, careful, and heavy with worry. He wrote, "This species is not a danger because of present capability. Their weapons do not threaten compact vessels. Their ships do not threaten our stations. If technology were the only measure, Earth would not matter." Then came the line that changed the shape of the file. The danger is behavioral. Voss had watched human conflicts. He had watched places where defeat should have been certain. He saw groups with fewer supplies create new methods in days. He saw injured people return to work before healing. He saw leaders become more creative when plans failed. He saw communities become tighter when destruction came closer. His conclusion was simple. When all known species reach hopeless conditions, effort declines. Humans show repeated evidence of the opposite. Their breaking point, if it exists, lies beyond current measurement. I stopped reading and looked at the empty walls of the archive. Beyond current measurement. That was not praise. It was not admiration. It was terror written in professional language. The compact had survived because it could predict. Prediction was safety. Prediction was peace. Prediction allowed elders to decide when to speak, when to trade, when to threaten, and when to withdraw. But humanity was not safely predictable. Not because humans were random. Because under pressure, they became more themselves. I returned to Orgeth. This time the door opened before I touched the chime. "You did not stop," Orgeth said. "No. I warned you. You knew I would continue." Orgeth gave a tired smile. "Curiosity is also dangerous. I found Cole. Whitfield. Hale. Bishop. Voss." At the name Voss, Orgeth looked away. "I know why Earth was marked," I said. "But I still do not know what the incident was." The room became very still. Orgeth did not speak for a long time. Then they gestured to the chair across from them. "Sit." Saturday, you are going to see something few outside the council have ever seen," Orgeth said. "Not because you are ready. No one is ready. But because you will find it eventually, and I would rather you understand than stumble into it alone." A projection opened between us. It showed an old council chamber filled with representatives from dozens of species. The recording was ancient. Some of the species in that chamber no longer existed. Some had changed forms. Some had become dust. The session had been called after Voss submitted his report. The council was divided. One side wanted controlled contact with humanity before humans reached the stars. Their argument was clear. If humans were dangerous, better to meet them while the compact still held every advantage. Build trust. Offer guidance. Shape their development. A representative named Charles Grant argued strongly for this. If we wait, he said, we only wait until they have the tools to match the danger already inside them. The other side wanted silence. A representative named Alice Ferris warned that contact itself was pressure, and pressure changed humans in ways no one could predict. We do not know what they will do when they learn they have been watched, she said. We do not know how they will respond to judgment from the stars. The debate lasted 3 days. 3 full days. Contact or silence. Trust or distance. Risk now or risk later. The vote was close. Then, near the end, one more report arrived. Orgeth paused the projection. This is what decided it, they said. The next file was not a polished report. It was raw communication from a patrol fleet near the edge of the Soul Exclusion Zone. They had found a human vessel. That alone was impossible. The ship was far beyond the distance humans were believed able to reach. It was damaged. Power was failing. Life signs were faint. The fleet commander should have withdrawn under standing orders. Instead, they chose rescue. The first entry said, human vessel found beyond expected range. Survivors detected. Limited rescue and containment operation authorized. Orgeth watched my face as the recording continued. A boarding team entered the human ship. They expected helpless survivors. They found 3. Margaret Doyle. Charles Grant. Peter Hale. 3 injured humans. Weak. Starving. Exhausted. Outnumbered. Surrounded by beings with better armor, better tools, better medicine, better weapons, and control of the only working transport. At first, the operation was calm. Then Margaret Doyle resisted restraint. She could barely stand. She resisted anyway. When the team forced her down, Charles Grant moved to help her despite injuries that should have made movement impossible. When they restrained him, Peter Hale, who was barely conscious, disabled a containment device using technology he had never seen before. I stopped breathing. 3 humans. No weapons. No plan. No hope. Still, they fought. Not with victory in reach. Not because it made sense. Because something inside them refused to accept the role of helpless prey. The boarding team eventually contained them. No one died. There was no glorious battle, no explosion, no fleet destroyed. That made it worse. Because the terror was not in what humans did. It was in what they revealed. The team leader's final note said, every survivor was beyond the point where resistance served practical purpose. Yet resistance did not diminish. It intensified. The council watched that report after 3 days of debate. The debate ended within an hour. Silence won. Earth would not be contacted. Earth would not be studied openly. Earth would not even be remembered by the public records. One small world was hidden from the galaxy, not because it had defeated anyone, but because 3 wounded humans had refused to stop. That was the moment I understood. The galaxy did not fear human armies. It feared the human answer to helplessness. It feared the moment when a human with nothing left still says, no. If this story is pulling you in, help the channel grow with one quiet action. Like the video, subscribe for more HFY stories, and share it with a friend who understands that the strongest creatures are not always the ones with the biggest weapons. I looked at Orgeth when the projection faded. What happened to them? I asked. The 3 survivors. Orgetha's face changed. For the first time, I saw shame. They were held, Orgeth said. Studied. Treated for injuries. Not harmed in the brutal sense, but not free. They were prisoners. Yes. The words sat between us. What did they do? Orgeth almost smiled. Not with amusement. With old fear. They adapted. Margaret Doyle learned routines. Guard rotations. Door timings. Which officers were strict? Which were careless? Which machines listened? Which machines only pretended to listen? Charles Grant spoke to the lower ranks. He asked harmless questions. He shared pieces of human life. Food. Families. Weather. Songs. In return, he received tiny facts about the fleet. Peter Hale watched technology. Every panel. Every lock. Every medical scanner. Every restraint field. He asked questions no one expected a prisoner to ask. When no one answered, he watched anyway. They did not panic. They did not collapse. They did not wait. They learned. And every day they remained in captivity, they became harder to safely hold. The fleet commander understood it before the council did. Their final message said, "Containment is becoming a liability. Continued captivity increases the chance that the humans will gain knowledge of our systems. They learn under pressure with unusual speed. They coordinate without obvious signals. They maintain resistance without clear expectation of success." So the commander made the strangest choice. They released them. 3 injured prisoners frightened a compact fleet into deciding that freedom was safer than captivity. The humans were returned near their home system. Their memories were clouded using technology that had worked on every species before them. But Orgeth told me the council never knew if it worked on humans. That thought stayed with me. What if the memory did not vanish? What if it became a dream? What if Margaret Doyle woke years later with fear of silver corridors and no reason why? What if Charles Grant told stories of voices among the stars, thinking they were only nightmares? What if Peter Hale spent his life building machines towards something he could not fully remember? What if human myths of watchers, abductions, lights in the sky, and beings beyond the world were not imagination at all? What if some part of humanity had known, deep down, that the dark was looking back? I asked Orgeth why the compact had never destroyed Earth. It was a terrible question. But after everything I had learned, I needed the answer. Orgeth did not judge me for asking. Because with humanity, they said, all final actions become uncertain. That makes no sense. It makes perfect sense. Every species we have ever fought could be modeled in the face of extinction. They bargain. They flee. They surrender. They scatter. They collapse. Even when they rage, the shape of the rage can be predicted. And humans? Humans are unknown at the edge. Orgeth stood and looked out at the stars. Imagine striking Earth. Imagine the compact attacks with overwhelming force. Perhaps the planet dies. Perhaps the species dies. But what if a warning escapes first? What if one signal reaches a colony we do not know exists? What if one ship survives? What if one child carries the memory? What does a species like humanity become when it knows the universe tried to kill it? I had no answer. Orgeth continued. You have seen the pattern in war. In disaster. In captivity. Now imagine it applied across generations. Imagine humans with one story left. One wound. One promise. Imagine what they build when revenge becomes not a moment, but a culture. That was the real terror. Not Earth as it was. Earth as it could become. A species that turned pressure into invention. A species that turned loss into unity. A species that turned impossible odds into a personal insult. The compact could defeat Earth today. Maybe. But if it failed to finish the job completely, if one human survived with knowledge of the attack, the future would become unknowable. And elders hate nothing more than an unknowable future. I returned to the archive after that with a different mind. Before, I had looked at Earth as a mystery. Now I looked at it as a mirror. Because the more I studied humans, the more I realized the galaxy had misunderstood them. The reports called them dangerous. That was true. But danger was not the whole truth. Humans did not only resist enemies. They resisted death. They resisted hunger. They resisted loneliness. They resisted meaninglessness. They wrote songs in prison. They made jokes in trenches. They planted flowers in ruined cities. They sent rescue teams into storms. They crossed oceans in wooden ships. They looked at their moon and decided that distance was not an answer. The same force that made them terrifying also made them beautiful. Their stubbornness was not only violence. It was love refusing to quit. It was hope with bruised hands. It was a doctor staying awake after 3 days because one more patient might live. It was a firefighter walking back into smoke because someone was still inside. It was a parent smiling at a child while the world fell apart, just so the child would not be afraid. How could the compact understand that? We were old. We were careful. We survived by measuring risk. Humans survived by stepping into risk for one another. That was harder to model than war. I spent weeks building my own report. I did not have permission. I did it anyway. I gathered every record. Every observation. Every contradiction. Every moment where human behavior had frightened the galaxy. But I also gathered the other side. The rescue efforts. The art. The sacrifices. The way humans mourn strangers. The way they turned suffering into memory, memory into warning, and warning into purpose. When I was done, I sent it to Orgith. The title was simple. Earth is not only a threat. Orgith came to my chamber the next day. They did not use a messenger. They came themselves. That alone told me my life had changed. You sent this to me only, they asked. Yes. Why? Because if I sent it to the council, I would disappear. Orgith did not deny it. They read the file in silence while I stood beside the console. At last, they said, "You are not wrong." I felt relief. Then they added, "But being right is not always enough." I know. Do you? I looked at the map on the wall. Thousands of lights. Thousands of known worlds. One missing blue dot. We have hidden from them for centuries, I said. We call it caution. But maybe it is also cowardice. Orgitha's eyes hardened. Careful. No. I am done being careful in the way the compact means careful. We saw a species that does not surrender easily, and instead of asking what makes them endure, we named them a danger and erased them. Because they are dangerous. So are we. That silenced them. I had never spoken to an elder like that. My hearts beat so hard I thought the console might hear them. Orgith looked old in that moment. Not powerful. Not frightening. Just old. Yes, they said. We are. There is a point in every life when silence becomes a decision. I had reached mine. I could return to the map wing. I could keep Earth hidden. I could become another careful being in a careful civilization that survived by never touching fire. Or I could do what no one in the compact had done for centuries. I could look at Earth honestly. Not as a threat to remove. Not as a mistake to hide. As a people. Flawed. Violent. Brilliant. Reckless. Loyal. Afraid. Brave. Human. I asked Orgith for access to one more thing. Current observation. They refused at once. No. You have it. No. The compact still watches Earth. Orgith said nothing. Show me. No. Then I will find it. Their expression tightened. That path leads to charges. I know. It may lead to prison. I know. It may lead to death. I took a breath. Maybe that is the first lesson humans teach anyone who studies them too long. Fear is not always a command to stop. Sometimes it is only proof that the next step matters. Orgith saw the decision in my face. They closed their eyes. Then they gave me the access key. Not with pride. Not with approval. With resignation. The current observation stream opened. Earth appeared above my console. Blue oceans. White clouds. Brown land. Storms turning slowly over the surface. Night cities glowing like spilled stars. I had studied 1,000 worlds. None had ever felt alive like that. The data rushed in. Humanity had advanced. Far more than the old report suggested. They had machines orbiting their world. They had reached their moon. They had sent probes beyond their planets. They had built stations in orbit and dreamed openly of Mars, of deep space, of stars. They were still divided. Still arguing. Still wounded by war, greed, fear, and pride. But they were also reaching upward. Always upward. I watched a transmission from Earth. A child asked a scientist if humans would ever meet aliens. The scientist smiled and said, maybe one day. The child asked, do you think they will be friendly? The scientist paused. Then said, I hope we are. I replayed that line many times. Not, I hope they are. I hope we are. That was humanity in one sentence. Fear turned inward. Responsibility carried before contact. Hope wrapped around doubt. The elders had spent centuries asking what humans might do to the galaxy. Maybe the better question was what the galaxy might become if humans joined it. Pause with me for a moment before the story turns again. If you enjoy stories where humanity is more than muscle and machines, like this video, subscribe, and share it. Somewhere out there, another listener is waiting for this kind of story. My report grew larger. It was no longer a secret note for Orgeth. It became a case. A dangerous case. A case for ending the silence. I argued that the old fear was incomplete. Yes, humans resisted under pressure. Yes, they became unpredictable when cornered. Yes, any hostile action against Earth could create consequences beyond calculation. But that was exactly why silence was failing. Every year, humanity reached farther. Every year, they built better engines, better telescopes, better listening devices. Every year, the chance increased that they would find us before we chose to reveal ourselves. And if humans discovered that the galaxy had watched them in secret for centuries, the very pressure Ferris had feared would arrive anyway. Only worse. Because silence would not look like caution. It would look like betrayal. Orgeth read the updated version and said nothing. I asked, will you take it to the council? No. Why? Because they will bury it. Then help me make them unable to bury it. That was the moment Orgeth truly looked afraid. What are you suggesting? The compact is built on records. Public records. Shared memory. If Earth was erased from the public archive, then we restore it. That would be illegal. Yes. It would be treated as an attack on council authority. Yes. You are speaking of archive breach at the highest level. Yes. And you think this is wise? No, I said. I think it is necessary. Orgeth stared at me for a long time. Then, very softly, they laughed. It was not a happy sound. You have studied humans too deeply. Maybe. You are beginning to sound like them. I looked at Earth turning above the console. Maybe that is not the worst thing. We did not release everything. That would have caused panic. Even I understood that. Instead, we released one small correction. A restored star entry. Sol system. Third planet. Inhabited. Contact status, none. Observation status, historical. Risk classification, unresolved. No warnings. No commands. No fear language. Just the truth that Earth existed. We placed it inside a routine map update, where millions of systems shifted slightly every day. For 6 hours, no one noticed. Then the archive alarms began. Not read in one room. Read across the entire compact. My console locked. Doors sealed. Dell floated beside me, silent for once. Outside my chamber, security drones moved through the hall. Orgith was arrested first. I was taken soon after. The interrogation chamber was white, smooth, and cold. 3 council investigators sat across from me. They asked who helped me. I said no one. They showed me proof of Orgith's key. I said I stole it. They did not believe me. They asked why I had done it. I said, because maps should not lie. One investigator leaned forward. His skin shimmered with anger. Do you understand what you have risked? Yes. You may have drawn attention toward a species that must remain isolated. They will not remain isolated. That is not your decision. No, I said. But hiding them until they find us angry and alone is also a decision. The investigator studied me. You speak as if you know them. I know the records. Records of violence. Records of endurance. Records of irrational resistance. Records of courage. Courage and danger are often the same shape. I had no answer to that. Because it was true. The council held an emergency session. I was not invited. Prisoners rarely are. But Orgith later told me what happened. Some wanted the Earth entry sealed again. Some wanted my memory altered. Some wanted Orgith removed from all authority. A few, very few, asked the question no council had seriously asked in centuries. What if silence was no longer safe? That question spread. Not because the elders had become brave, but because the archive correction could not be fully contained. Too many systems had copied the update. Too many scholars had seen the restored entry. Too many junior cartographers had asked why one ordinary world had caused half the council to panic. The word Earth began to move. Quietly at first. Then faster. A historian found an old reference to Sol in a trade route record. A military analyst found the Voss report mentioned in a sealed index. A student in the Diplomacy Academy asked why contact status said none when observation status said historical. Questions became threads. Threads became pressure. The compact hated pressure. Now it faced a very human problem. The more it tried to suppress Earth, the more attention Earth received. Within days, Earth became the most searched word in restricted academic networks. Within weeks, rumors spread beyond the archives. Some said humans were monsters. Some said humans were gods. Some said Earth had defeated the elders in secret. Some said Earth was a prison world. Some said Earth did not exist at all. The truth, as always, was stranger. Earth was a mirror the galaxy had avoided because it did not like what it saw. Old powers fear young species for many reasons. They fear weapons. They fear hunger. They fear expansion. But most of all, they fear being judged by someone who still believes the future can be different. Humanity was young enough to be foolish. Young enough to hope. Old civilizations call that dangerous because they have spent too long calling surrender wisdom. In my cell, Dell was allowed to visit me once per day. It floated through the security field and projected news summaries. On the 12th day, it said, there has been a council motion. For my punishment? No. For Earth. I stood. Dell's small lights flickered. A review committee has been approved. The Sol exclusion status will be examined. I laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because my body did not know what else to do with the feeling. Will they open contact? Unknown. Will they seal it again? Unknown. Unknown. That word had terrified the elders for centuries. Now it sounded like a door. Orgith visited me on the 20th day. They looked tired, but alive. I thought they would erase us both, I said. They considered it comforting. They still may, depending on what happens next. What happens next? Orgith sat outside the field. The committee reviewed recent Earth transmissions. And they are divided. Of course. Some see confirmation of every fear. War. Division. Environmental damage. Weapons. Anger. Old hatred with new machines. And the others? Orgith looked at me. They saw rescue workers digging through rubble with bare hands. Scientists sharing research across enemy borders. Humans sending messages into space that say hello to anyone who may be listening. Children asking whether aliens will be kind. Artists imagining friendship with stars they have never touched. I closed my eyes. And you? Orgitha's voice softened. I saw what I should have seen long ago. A dangerous species, yes. But not only dangerous. For the first time since my arrest, hope entered the room. It was small. Human-sized. But it was there. The committee requested a final hearing. I was brought before them in restraints. The council chamber was larger than the old recording. Cleaner. Brighter. Filled with species who had inherited a fear most of them had never examined. Earth hovered in the center of the room. The presiding elder asked me one question. Cartographer Veer, why should the compact risk contact with humanity? I could have given them data. I could have quoted Cole, Voss, Whitfield, Bishop, Hale. I could have argued strategy, probability, future discovery curves, and long-term diplomatic risk. Instead, I told them the truth. Because they are coming anyway. The chamber was silent. Not with war fleets. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But with questions. With signals. With machines. With stories. With children who look up and ask who else is out there. We can meet them as liars who hid in the dark, or we can meet them as neighbors who were afraid and finally chose honesty. A counselor spoke. You make them sound gentle. No, I said. They are not gentle. Not always. Neither are we. Another asked, do you deny that they are dangerous? No. I believe they may be one of the most dangerous species we have ever found. Murmurs filled the chamber. I raised my voice. But danger is not the same as evil. Fire is dangerous. So is gravity. So is truth. Humanity is dangerous because they do not stop easily. That can make them terrifying enemies. It can also make them extraordinary allies. Orgith watched from the side of the chamber. I thought of the 3 survivors. Margaret Doyle learning the routines of a prison ship. Charles Grant speaking gently to his captors. Peter Hale studying alien machines through pain. I thought of Earth. Messy. Loud. Beautiful. Afraid. Brave. If we approach them with chains, I said, they will break the chains or die trying. If we approach them with threats, they will remember forever. If we approach them with arrogance, they will prove us wrong simply because we told them they could not. I looked at the blue planet turning above us. But if we approach them with honesty, maybe they will surprise us in another way. The presiding elder leaned forward. What way? I smiled a little. Maybe they will reach back. The vote took hours. I was returned to my cell before it ended. Dell came at dawn. Its lights were brighter than usual. The council has decided, it said. I stood slowly. The soul exclusion will not be fully lifted. My hope fell. Dell continued. But it will no longer be permanent. A controlled observation and preparation program has been approved. First contact planning will begin. I gripped the edge of the table. When? Not soon. Years, perhaps. They are still afraid. Good, I said. Dell tilted slightly. Good. Yes. Fear will make them careful. But this time, maybe not silent. Orgith visited me one final time before I was released. The charges were not erased, but reduced. My rank was stripped. My access was limited. I would never again work freely in the map archive. It was a small price. Orgith stood beside me at the observation window as Earth turned in distant light. You changed very little, they said. I know. And perhaps everything. I know that too. They looked at me with something close to respect. Do you still think they are worth the risk? I watched Earth's clouds move over blue water. Yes. Why? I thought about all the records. All the fear. All the warnings. All the moments when humans should have stopped and did not. Then I answered. Because one day the galaxy will face something worse than itself. Orgeth said nothing. I continued. Maybe a war. Maybe a darkness from outside mapped space. Maybe a disaster no model can solve. Maybe a day when all the old species look at the numbers and decide survival is impossible. I turned toward the elder. And on that day, we may need someone who does not understand how to quit. Orgeth looked back at Earth. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then they said, that is what I fear most. What? That you are right. Years passed. Not many by Orgetha's measure, but enough by mine. I did not return to my old work. Instead, I was assigned to a quiet office under supervision, reviewing cultural signals from Earth. It was meant as punishment. Limited access. No authority. Endless human noise. It became the greatest education of my life. I learned their music first. That surprised me. Across every region of Earth, humans sang. In joy. In grief. In worship. In protest. In love. In war. In fields. In prisons. In hospitals. In streets. Alone in rooms where no one else could hear. Their songs did not hide pain. They carried it. Then I learned their stories. So many stories. Small beings facing giants. Lost travelers finding home. Heroes failing and rising again. Monsters defeated by kindness, cleverness, courage, or stubborn refusal. Humans told their children again and again that the weak could stand, that the lost could return, that the dark could be challenged. No wonder they became what they were. A species becomes the stories it repeats. The compact told stories of balance. Humans told stories of defiance. The compact told children to survive. Humans told children to try. I watched their arguments too. Their cruelty. Their failures. Their talent for hurting each other over lines on maps, old wounds, and imagined differences. I did not romanticize them. No honest observer could. Humanity was not pure. No species is. But humans had something rare. They could look at the worst parts of themselves and still produce people who tried to heal them. That mattered. It mattered more than the council understood. One day, a signal arrived from Earth unlike the others. It was not aimed at us. Not directly. It was part of a deep space transmission, a message sent outward with mathematics, images, sounds, and greetings. A simple message. We are here. We are listening. We hope someone answers. I sat with that message for a long time. Then I sent a copy to Orgeth. Their reply came 3 hours later. Only one sentence. They are knocking. The first official response was not sent that day. Or that year. The compact moves slowly. Fear moves even slower when it has been fed for centuries. But preparation began. Linguists studied human languages openly now. Diplomats learned Earth history. Military advisors argued about safety boundaries. Philosophers argued about moral responsibility. Young students argued about whether humans would like compact food. That last debate became surprisingly intense. Earth had entered the galaxy before any ship left the Sol system. Not through conquest. Through curiosity. Through the pressure of being impossible to ignore. And then came the day no model had predicted. A human probe, old and small, crossed a listening boundary far beyond what the compact believed it could reach. It was not dangerous. It carried no weapon. It barely functioned. But it was there. Attached to it was a message from decades earlier. Voices. Music. Images. Greetings in many human languages. A child's laughter. A heartbeat. The sound of waves. For some reason, that frightened the council more than a missile would have. A missile has an answer. A greeting requires one. The council gathered again. This time, I was not a prisoner. I was not a cartographer either. I was something unofficial, inconvenient, and difficult to remove. A witness. Orgeth spoke first. For centuries, we have avoided Earth because we feared what humanity might become under pressure. That fear was not baseless. But we must now accept that our silence has become pressure of its own. The humans are reaching outward. If we do not answer, they will continue. If they discover us without our honesty, we may create the very danger we hoped to avoid. Another elder asked, and if we answer? Orgeth looked at the image of the human probe. Then we face them with truth. The chamber stirred. Truth. Old civilizations distrust that word. Truth makes clean lies impossible. The debate was shorter this time. Not because fear had vanished. Because time had. Humanity was coming. The final vote approved a message. Not full contact. Not a landing. Not open borders. One reply. Carefully written. Honest enough to matter. Gentle enough to avoid panic. Simple enough to survive translation. I was allowed to see it before transmission. It said, "People of Earth, you are not alone. We have known of you for a long time. We were afraid. We are still afraid. But we believe fear should not be the only voice between us. We send this message in peace." I read it 3 times. Then I asked, who wrote the line about fear? Orgeth said, I did. I looked at them. They did not look ashamed. The message was sent toward Earth. Then the galaxy waited. Do not drift away now, because we are close to the part every HFY story lives for. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story so more people can hear why the galaxy finally learned what humans really are. The reply from Earth did not come quickly. Distance still mattered. Light still took time. Even in an age of advanced engines and hidden stations, the message had to cross the old dark between worlds. So we waited. Waiting is easy for elders. It is torture for everyone else. During that time, Earth changed. Not because of our message. Not yet. They had not received it. They changed because humans always change. They built better machines. They argued over futures. They dreamed of colonies. They feared disasters. They invented cures. They made new mistakes. They repaired old ones badly, then tried again. One phrase appeared often in their broadcasts. We are not ready. I heard it from scientists. From politicians. From teachers. From frightened citizens. We are not ready for contact. We are not ready for the stars. We are not ready for what comes next. I understood that fear. But I also knew a secret the humans did not. No one is ever ready. Not really. The first creature that crawled from the sea was not ready for land. The first bird was not ready for sky. The first mind that looked at fire was not ready for what fire would make possible. Readiness is a story people tell themselves after they survive. The reply arrived during a quiet shift. Del was with me. Orgeth was asleep, or pretending to sleep, which elders often do when they do not want to admit they are worried. The signal entered the listening net as a narrow beam. Human origin confirmed. Language, English. Message length, short. My hands trembled as I opened it. A human voice filled the room. Not a leader's grand speech. Not a threat. Not a demand. A calm voice, tired and careful. To whoever sent the message. We received you. We do not know whether to be afraid, angry, grateful, or amazed, so for now, we are all of those things. I laughed through a breath I had not realized I was holding. The voice continued. You say you watched us because you were afraid. That hurts. It also makes sense. We have been afraid of ourselves for a long time. There was a pause. We cannot speak for all humanity. No one can. But we can answer this much. We are here. We are listening. And if peace is truly what you want, then come honestly. Do not come as masters. Do not come as judges. Do not come as ghosts. Another pause. Come as neighbors. We will try to do the same. The message ended. Del was silent. I sent for Orgeth. They arrived faster than dignity should have allowed. I played the reply. When it ended, Orgeth lowered themselves into a chair. For a long time, they said nothing. Then their ancient eyes filled with something I had never seen in them before. Not fear. Not grief. Wonder. They answered better than we deserved, they said. Yes. What happens now? It was strange to hear an elder ask me that. I think now, I said, the hard part begins. Because peace is not made by one message. Trust is not built by a beautiful sentence. The humans were angry. Of course they were. Many felt betrayed. Many demanded proof. Many feared invasion. Many denied the message was real. Many wanted to know what else had been hidden. Some wanted weapons built at once. Some wanted open contact immediately. Some wanted silence returned. In that, humanity and the compact were more alike than either wanted to admit. Both feared the unknown. Both argued. Both prepared for danger while speaking of peace. But something held. The first talks happened through delayed transmissions. Slow, careful, imperfect. Each side sent questions. Each answer created more questions. Humans asked why we had hidden. The compact answered, honestly enough to wound itself. We were afraid of your capacity for resistance under pressure. The human reply came back. That is not a reason to hide. That is a reason to be careful how you treat us. Orgeth read that line and nodded. They learn quickly, they said. They always did. Humans asked about the 3 survivors. That nearly broke everything. The council did not want to answer. I argued that hiding the truth now would poison all future contact. Orgeth agreed. So the compact released the record of Margaret Doyle, Charles Grant, and Peter Hale. Earth did not respond for several days. When it did, the message was not diplomatic. It was quiet. We want their names preserved. That was all. Not revenge. Not yet. Names. Memory. The compact had feared human rage. It had underestimated human grief. Memorials appeared on Earth. Not official at first. Small ones. Digital pages. Paintings. Songs. 3 names written beside stars. Margaret Doyle. Charles Grant. Peter Hale. The 3 who met the galaxy wounded and afraid, and still refused to become helpless. The council watched those memorials with unease. I watched them with respect. Humans do not only remember victories. They remember pain until it becomes a promise. The first real meeting took place far from Earth, on neutral ground, aboard a station built for the purpose. No weapons inside the chamber. No hidden restraints. No memory tools. Every system open to both sides. The human delegation arrived in a ship that looked painfully young beside compact vessels. Small. Ugly by our standards. Beautiful by mine. Because it had come from Earth. When the humans entered, the chamber seemed to change. There were 5 of them. Different nations. Different languages. Different skin tones. Different histories standing inside one shared breath. They looked afraid. They did not hide it well. But they kept walking. Orgeth led the compact side. I stood behind them as record keeper. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the lead human stepped forward. Her name was Dr. Elena Marrow. She looked at Orgith, then at the gathered representatives, then at the transparent wall where stars burned in the distance. "So," she said, "you are the people who have been avoiding us." A few compact officials stiffened. Orgith surprised everyone by answering, "Yes." Dr. Marrow nodded. "Good. I prefer a clear start. That was humanity. Cut straight to the wound. See if it bleeds. Then decide whether healing is possible." The first meeting lasted 9 hours. Humans asked hard questions. Why were we watched? Why were the survivors held? What right did the Compact have to decide Earth's future without Earth? Why should humans trust a civilization that had hidden the truth? The Compact answered badly at first. Old powers are not skilled at apology. They explain when they should confess. They justify when they should listen. Dr. Marrow finally raised a hand. "With respect," she said, in the tone humans use when respect is becoming thin, "stop telling us how complicated it was. We know fear is complicated. We are asking whether you understand that you were wrong." The chamber froze. No young species speaks to elders that way. Orgith looked at her. Then bowed their head. "Yes," Orgith said. "We were wrong." I saw the human delegation shift. Not relax. Not forgive. But the first stone moved. After that, the meeting became real. Not easy. Real. The humans admitted their own fear. They asked what protections the Compact needed. They offered cultural exchange slowly, with review from both sides. They refused any arrangement that placed Earth under authority. They accepted safety boundaries if those boundaries were mutual. Mutual. That word troubled many elders. Humans insisted on it. "We will not be managed," Dr. Marrow said. "We will cooperate." There is a difference. And because the Compact had spent centuries studying human resistance, no one was foolish enough to push too hard. The first treaty was only 4 pages. That shocked the Council. Compact treaties are usually thousands of pages. Humans said the first agreement should be short enough for ordinary people to understand. Its core promise was simple. No hidden observation. No forced contact. No memory alteration. No weapons within agreed distance. No decisions about Earth without humans present. In return, Earth agreed to slow expansion beyond certain zones until shared navigation and safety systems were ready. The elders called it risky. The humans called it a beginning. Both were right. There were incidents, of course. A Compact scientist insulted human technology and 3 human engineers spent 6 months building a drive modification that embarrassed him in public testing. A trade envoy tried to pressure a small human settlement into an unfair resource deal, and the settlement responded by publishing the entire negotiation across 13 worlds, turning the envoy into a case study in bad diplomacy. A military observer suggested humans were too emotionally unstable for joint crisis work. 2 weeks later, a station fire broke out, and the human medical team stayed inside until every trapped worker was out. After that, no one repeated the comment. Slowly, the galaxy learned what Earth had always been. Not safe. Not simple. Not obedient. But loyal when respected. Brilliant when challenged. Unbearable when underestimated. And almost impossible to stop once committed. The old warning remained in some private archives. Do not engage. Do not study. Do not remember. But someone, no one ever proved who, added a new line beneath it. If you must engage, do so honestly. If you must study, be ready to learn. If you remember nothing else, remember this. Never give humanity a reason to unite against you. That became the unofficial rule of galactic diplomacy. Do not corner humans. Do not lie to them if the truth will later be found. Do not mistake kindness for weakness. Do not assume fear will make them bend. And above all, never believe that taking away their options means they have none left. Because humans make options from scrap. They make plans from panic. They make families from strangers. They make weapons from tools, and tools from wreckage, and hope from almost nothing. That is why the Galactic Elders avoided Earth. Not because Earth was the strongest world. Not because humans had the greatest ships. Not because their armies could conquer the stars. The Elders avoided Earth because they saw, long before anyone else, that humanity carried a terrifying gift. The ability to become more dangerous, more united, and more alive when the universe tried hardest to make them stop. And in the end, that gift did not destroy the galaxy. It changed it. The compact became less certain. That was good. The Elders learned to explain themselves. That was better. Young species found courage in the human example. That was dangerous, but also beautiful. And Earth? Earth kept being Earth. Messy. Loud. Restless. Impossible. A blue planet full of people who looked at the stars and did not see a ceiling. They saw a question. And humans have never been good at leaving questions alone. Now we close this chapter, but the stars are still full of stories. If this one stayed with you, like the video, subscribe for more HFY Sci-Fi, and share it with someone who believes humanity's greatest power is not perfection, but the refusal to stop trying.